Well, g'day, folks. It's Greg. We're back. It's Friday. It's lunch and learn time. It's been a week or so since, maybe 2 weeks since we've had a session. So welcome back. We're into a new season. It's season 13 of Friday Lunch and I don't know what season we're up to. I have to come up with new concepts, and then we run a season of those concepts. I thought what we would do for this season is because fabric's kind of still the flavor of the month, and it's still, hasn't come out yet officially, but I'm sure it's imminent. And we've got Ignite around the corner. We've also got the Pass Summit coming up. Both of those are usually times when Microsoft announce things like putting things like Fabric GA. So I imagine it'll happen imminently. I don't have any inside information. They don't tell us when they're going to release things GA. They never commit on dates, Microsoft. They just say yes, possibly in the upcoming quarters, that kind of thing. So I don't have any insider info on that. But yeah, I imagine Fabric is pretty soon going to be coming out. Obviously, there's things like Copilots and other interesting things that potentially are going to be announced as well. So definitely worth checking out the Ignite conference coming up. I think it's mid-November, so not long ago. They've opened they've opened registrations and stuff. So check out the Ignite conference. Maybe we'll pop a link in the chat for those who are interested. So with Fabric comes this sort of concept of data platforms, and so I wanted to explore a little bit more about data platforms. We haven't really gone into maybe some different sort of architecture type conversations. And really, this is big in the world of data at the moment because there's a push for everybody to start using generative AI to do something, right? And this is coming from executives and things like that. They're like, we want generative AI, we want all this cool technology, and then on the technical side, people are like, well, your data is terrible, and you don't have a platform that supports what you're trying to do there. Have you heard of the word governance? Like all this kind of stuff is where the bottleneck almost is for people in the data world. And I think it's a good time to be talking about this kind of stuff, understanding what we mean by a data platform, and then what are the things we need to do to start implementing this stuff so we can take advantage of generative AI and all the other cool AI things, and have really amazing reporting and all the rest of it. I don't know what direction I'll go with it. I know this is a huge subject, and there's lots of potential places we could take it. So I'm willing to take your feedback. What are your experiences? What are your frustrations? What are your challenges in this space? To start out the conversation, what I thought I would do is we start having a look at some of the data platform architectures that Microsoft recommend to us. Now, I will say that we're going to keep the conversation related to the Microsoft stack. So we're going to be talking Azure, and we're going to be talking Power BI, sort of Microsoft 365 tools. Almost all of the stuff we talk about, though, will be translatable to your Amazon or your GCP, your Google Cloud, right? But they'll use a different stack. Some of the tools, so let's say we talk about a tool like Databricks, that's going to be transferable across clouds. Like Databricks is an independent company, and they have solutions for all three clouds, or all of it, and probably spin it up yourself as well. So there's definitely, there'll be crossover, but for the purposes of this conversation, given I'm a Microsoft guy, I definitely want to stick to talk. And I just know Microsoft better than I know the other clouds as well. So
let's be honest, it's just better too.
And it's better, yeah. Don't tell Amazon that. All right. So what I thought I'd do is there's this thing, there's a link that I'll give you all now that you can open up, but I'll show it on the screen, but you don't have to. This is the one that I often bring up with customers when we talk about data, and they're saying, oh, we're not really sure how to kind of organize things. How do we put stuff together? I will often start with this area of Microsoft Learn. This is an interesting area of Microsoft Learn. It talks about all of your Azure stuff, right? So there's all these other things to do with Azure, but one of them they're talking specifically, and you can see here we're talking about analytics end to end with Azure. Yeah. And then they've got all these, here's a getting started area, and here's some guides around, how you should kind of architect things. And then they've got all these architectures, right? And then they've got this, and look at all the different architectures. And I think this is the first point I want to make, is that every single data platform, at least the ones that I've come across, are pretty much unique, right? There's almost one weird, unique thing about every organization, no matter how similar they are. And I think people run into this problem a lot, where there's no one size fits all solution for building data platforms. And you're going to have potentially some unique aspect of your data platform that you need to kind of deal with, whether it's a business rule related thing, or whether it's an actual tech tool or technology you use a specific weird thing that nobody else uses, or you're just, it's just your processes are strange compared to others. You're probably going to have something unique about it, and it does affect the way that you should kind of architect your Azure or your Microsoft Fabric or your Power BI environment. So I know a lot of you come from the Power BI world, like that's where a lot of us started. This is where we go down the rabbit hole a little bit, and you dip your toe in the water with Power BI in the data platform world. You start to do things like you're effectively, Power BI just by itself is kind of a basic data platform, right? If you think of a data platform has the ability, and it's kind of shown here in this architecture diagram. You have your source systems on the left-hand side. You have the ability to ingest, to store data, to process data, to enrich data, to serve data out to your business users, right? And it runs left to right. These are the kind of, the general high-level areas of a data platform. And Power BI just by itself, you just take all of the icons off the screen and you just put a big yellow Power BI icon in the middle. Power BI does everything on this list, right? In Power BI, you can connect to source systems through Power Query or data flows if you want to. You can store that via a data flow, or if you're getting into the Fabric world, then you're starting to get into OneLake. You can process that data via Power Query again, or a data flow. You can enrich the data. It's got built-in ML components of Power Query Online. And then you can serve it out to Power BI, right? You can build in a model. So that's part of enriching and serving. You can model the data. You can do all of it. So Power BI just by itself is a data platform. And I think we start in this space where we've got this kind of, I don't know if it's starting to get more and more complicated as we go down this path of moving into kind of the world of Fabric. It's starting to get to the point where we are actually building, and we're expected to build and expected to understand all of the components of like some of these more complex, scalable kind of enterprise grade architectures. Now, this architecture that you've got in front of you does exactly the same stuff. It just does it in a more modular, more, maybe more configurable, maybe more powerful, maybe more scalable way, right? And it's interesting to see all the variation of things that you can potentially do in data platforms. I think there are some things that these larger data platforms does that Power BI doesn't do well. Things like integrating with applications, right? So if you're building a Power App, you would struggle to build a Power App on top of a Power BI data set, for example. I don't even know if you could probably use the API to pull stuff out of the data set, and it would be pretty horrible. You certainly couldn't write back to the data set. You could, however, write back to, say, a Power BI data mart, but is anyone really using data marts, and would you build that as an application? You can see here in this example, they've got Cosmos DB here, right? So actually, I'll enable my Zoom because I haven't enabled it yet. So this is this part of this equation here. You've got Cosmos DB, you've got some applications. So this is our big data lake here, which is like OneLake, which is like you know, like a data flow is a kind of a form of a data lake. And if you want to build data-driven applications, the recommendation here, if you want to build a scalable enterprise data-driven application solution, you first pipe all the data you need for the application out to Cosmos DB, and then have the application interact with Cosmos DB. Now, Cosmos DB is kind of overkill if you were building a global scale giant application, yeah, you would use Cosmos DB for that kind of thing. Whether you would need to do it in this space, it's another question. Like, but that is, you know, this is the official kind of, you know, architecture. If you're doing knowledge mining applications, so that's something like, let's say you're doing complex kind of data matching, and this is knowledge mining applications actually similar to the architecture you would use for something like generative AI, right? Because that is Azure Cognitive Search is a similar kind of tool. So this is like an ML. If you're building like a graph, like ML, super complex cognitive search style application that's going to search across a whole bunch of things, then you can still use the data out of your data lake, but you're building this cognitive search layer in front and then building these knowledge mining applications. So data platform isn't just about analytics. Data platform is also about application integration. It's about ML and AI integration. You've got this concept of Azure Data Share, sharing external data sets externally, right? Which people think of as being part of your analytics layer, and it kind of is, but it's a whole other complexity as a part of the architecture. And then if you have shared data sets, you can also do that kind of stuff in Power BI, right? And I think there's that old saying, there's more than one way to skin a cat. That definitely applies here with data platforms. You can see that's just analytics end to end. Let's say you've got MongoDB. How would you architect that? Oh, here's another architecture. Let's say you want to do anomaly detection. Here's another architecture. You've got all of these different architectures to build out different, or potentially, using different components to serve out like different specific use cases in terms of data platforms. So you can see look, there's heaps of them, right? There's so many possible options you can do when it comes to building these more broad scale kind of data platform solutions, instead of just this kind of narrow band analytics solutions that we tend to think about when we're thinking about it from a reporting perspective. So I wanted to explore this idea a little bit. I wanted to explore a little bit about what we think Fabric can and can't do in this space. I wanted to get everybody's kind of view on kind of where we think we're at in this space. And also, I see this more and more. This is where kind of the industry seems to have a lot of confusion, right? Because like I said, everybody wants generative AI. Nobody cares about governance. Everybody's got problems with governance, right? And building these more robust enterprise architectures helps with that kind of governance piece. MongoDB never again, yeah. Everybody, the MongoDB. Was it? Yeah, horrible. Interesting. Actually, I was looking at this architecture because I had a similar experience with MongoDB, and I was like, "Oh, okay, that's how they're kind of recommending the architecture." But yeah, watch out for MongoDB, everybody. It's not easy. All right. Yeah. So to facilitate this, what I thought I would do is I want to let's build out like a data platform. We'll use Fabric. We'll see what we can do. We'll have a few different use cases that we're trying to achieve, and then we'll see what we can do in terms of implementing it on the Fabric space. So that was kind of my plan. I thought, well, we could have a look at some of the, like there's all these edge cases. We're not going to need to do all the edge cases. Maybe we'll make up an organization. We'll make like a fictional organization. We'll just try and build out some of the components, say, hey, we want to do this piece and this piece. We'll see what we can do in terms of building it out. That's kind of the plan.
Sounds good.
How we going? Yeah, bit of fun. Well, there's 42 people here. Welcome all. What are the interesting things? I thought if you look at, we were talking about AI, right? Somewhere in here, there was like what to do with AI. Geospatial, IoT, and data analytics. What's the IoT one look like? You've got a IoT hub, stream analytics, SQL database, and a web app. You're piping IoT data out to blob storage for your web app. You've got a traffic manager and a load balancer, then 2 virtual machines, and then you use this data stacks. The other interesting thing about these architectures is that they talk about technologies sometimes where I'm like, I've never heard of that. I'm gonna have to look into what this does. Data stacks is one of them. Spark I've heard of, obviously. HC Insight I've heard of. But they were talking. There's one on what's it, governance, where I was like, oh, this is like all sorts of crazy stuff. And look how many architectures you can potentially, data ops, right? So this is the other thing that I want to potentially talk about as well, is looking at data ops architectures, because this is also part of the problem. And it potentially has, and this is the same, the anomaly detector architecture is the same. Here we go, data ops for a modern data warehouse, right? So a parking web service this must be from a very specific. Okay, so it copies data out using ADF into data lake storage. You got landing, malformed, interim, and then data warehouse zones. We have to talk about zones as well. I don't know if you guys know the YouTube all about analytics, but Simon, he was talking about data lake zone, like the medallion architectures, bronze, silver, gold, and now it's like this is a really good. I'll post the video. It's really good about how it's all just like everybody's all over the place. Nobody knows what it means. It's pretty funny. Cleaning and standardizing. So this is another thing that we have to integrate into our data platform, is this concept of data ops, right? So you can think about a data platform or when we build data solutions in 2 ways, right? There's the building part. So this is where you're gathering requirements, you're trying to understand the business problem. We talk about all this stuff all the time, right? We're trying to understand the users and what they're trying to do. We're building a Power BI, you go through multiple iterations, you mess around with it. All that's great. And then you publish it, right? And when you publish it, what happens? It doesn't just, it's not just like you publish it and then you never think about it ever again and nothing, right? You need to operate it as well, right? And so that's the operation. So there's the build side, and then there's the operation side of these things, right? And if you work in larger,
unless you're one of the big 4, then you can just build it and leave, right?
You build it and leave. Yeah, well, that's right. They hand over to operations, which is the internal team, and see you later, and we'll go and find the next person to charge. Yeah. So to become well-rounded in our understanding of data and how it works, we need to know how to build stuff. So we need to know how to build analytic solutions and good reports, but we also should have a good understanding of how to operate and optimize these operations. And that's what these concept of data ops comes into it. And there's some really great stuff on data ops that we'll go through. There's some great articles by John Kursky and people talking about how to implement data ops in the Power BI world. So we've got also not only how we build these platforms, but then also how we operate them, how we optimize them. I went to a conference earlier in the week on ML ops, right? So that's machine learning ops, which is another of these. So this all comes from the DevOps movement, right? Everybody talks about DevOps. I've been talking about this DevOps stuff for years, but in the end, it was an ML Ops conference, and they were talking a lot about and it's amazing how complicated it is to reliably serve up an ML model, right? So let's say in an example, you build a model that predicts what the price of your products is going to be, and then that is constantly, you're feeding in new data, you're constantly predicting the prices to stay in line with your competition or whatever the ML model, however it does it, and then it's changing the prices on your website. That's something as simple as that. Well, you need to not only do you need to build that model, so the process of building the model, you get a data scientist in, they come in, they build some crazy stuff, they use R and Python and all these crazy tools to get the model right. They iterate on the model. It's similar to building an analytics solution, to be honest, because they have all these iterations, they use all these tools, they use the equivalent of Power Query to hack things together, they're pulling data in from all different places, and then they have the model, they train the model, they iterate on the training of the model, and then the model works, and it's 99.9% accurate or whatever, and now you can just feed it data and it predicts the outcome, the pricing or whatever. So what they do is they throw the pig over the fence. Then they go, well, the model works, here you go, operations, enjoy, right? And it's really interesting, going to these ML conferences, because then the ops team go, well, now we have to just rewrite the code from scratch, because the way data scientists write code is horrible, because they write in this creative, iterative way. They hack all this stuff together. They copy and paste code out of ChatGPT, because their focus is around making it work and making it and getting it to the point to finish the project. And if you've got Deloitte in or someone to do it, then they're going to do the same thing, right? They're going to get it to the point where it's finished, but it's not going to be optimized for operation. And so your operational teams then, they have people that come in. They basically, in the ML world, in the mature ML world, which is, I will tell you, there's not many organizations that have a mature ML ops setup. But the ones who do, they have their operations teams are also experts in kind of ML, but they're experts in, they take that crazy data science code and then they rewrite it to be optimized to work as it in the existing architecture. So your data scientists have all of these tools. They have all these crazy tools. The ops people, they only want to use a small number of tools, right, that are optimized and are available to them and all that kind of stuff. So your data scientists might write some Python, might write some R, might write some other stuff. They bring it all to, they might write Scala, and they might write, they write all this stuff in all different technologies. Your ops people then have to take that and they might translate that all to Python, because that's what their standardized tool set is. And so you've got this, and if you think about this in the Power BI world, we do this kind of stuff as well, right? We come in, we say, hey, we're going to build some cool stuff, and then we connect Power Query to all of these data sets, and we bring it all in straight from the source system, and we hack together these solutions, and we build a report, and then we visualize that report, and we spend ages getting the visualizations right, and then we say, here you go, here's your report, it refreshes, that's the end. But that whole pipeline never sees the light of day in terms of optimization if you don't have an operations team that is specialized in operating these things. So theoretically, what could happen is an operations team takes that over, they look at all that Power Query and they convert it all to like Spark Python code, because that's going to be a more optimized way to transform the data, or they convert it to even more optimized Power Query, even depending on what your architecture is and your data platform uses. And I think
one other example of this that I find, and something that's really cool now that we can blend data models, is you can get the business stakeholder who's got his own, Excel spreadsheet, which is pulled from some internal system, and you links it into the data model, proves out that this is now a useful data set, hands it over to the data ops team, who will then prepare, actually pulling from the source system and providing it in a structured data mart, as opposed to just a spreadsheet that needs to be refreshed.
Yeah, exactly. So you're potentially going to have this mature, it's almost like a maturity level of each of your data pipelines. There's a question here. When you say model, do you mean data model or machine learning analytical model? In that example I was talking about machine learning models. Yeah. So not the relational. I know it gets confusing and this is horrible. So I'm talking about a machine learning model that is trained and to do predictive analytics, as opposed to a relational kind of data model that you would get in Power BI. And yeah, I wish there were different terms, but unfortunately they use the same term for those things. I'll try and be specific when I'm talking about those two things, but I think the same kind of thing applies. And I think we see that, and that's a good example from Michael, right, is that we also see this in like finance teams. And even at the Power BI meetup last week, we had Lance talking about doing financial modeling. So that's Excel financial model, another kind of model, right? But it's a similar kind of process. Somebody extracts data out of the data lake or the data warehouse, or they get data from a bunch of different places. They build an Excel sheet that does the financial modeling, which could be, forecasting and budgeting. It might be all sorts of things, whatever financial gurus do. They build this sheet. It has the solution, and then we need to get that back into the data lake to then serve it up. It's the same model. I'm going to say model again, but the same structure as something to do with ML. It's the same structure potentially with analytics as well. You pipe it out of the data lake, you do something to it, and then you're potentially bringing that new refined data set back into the data lake. You also have use cases where you do this in the analytics space. Often we take it out and we don't put it back in, and that's kind of how Power BI is designed. But you do have use cases where people talk about, well, I need to do DAX calculations and then have the results of those DAX calculations come back in so I can do further analysis or build an application or something like that uses those calculations. And so we have this new kind of paradigm emerging where we need to be more across how whole data platforms work, and then understand these patterns of how data comes in and out of our data platform to build something that's going to be effective and scalable and work in the long run. Okay. Power BI data write back. Ooh, look at this. Speaking of data write back. And you can see, it's amazing the variety of solutions, like this. So now for data write back, they're introducing things like Dataverse, whereas in that previous architecture, if you're doing some kind of data write back, you might be doing it via Cosmos DB, or you might be doing it via something else. There's so many different technologies, and what I'm hoping to do is start to coalesce some of these things together into an understand, so we understand where each of these pieces fit, because there is a huge number of them across the Azure platform. So there you go. What do you want to do? How do we architect it if we need to write back data into Power BI? We've got a Power BI data set. Here's all our data sources. Okay, Dataverse, SQL, Synapse, SharePoint, Salesforce. Oh, included chat Salesforce. And you build a Power App. Yeah. So what Power App is just connecting directly to the data source. Is that what they're saying? Yep, looks like it. A submit for single processing, or a Power Automate for bulk processing. And then a Power Automate to refresh the data. Yeah, definitely one way to do it. I saw another interesting one, which was implementing write back on Fabric. I think was it who does Data Gods? The Chris had a video on implementing write back in Fabric, which is similar, but he incorporated OneLake and Dataverse and Power Apps, and then integrated it. So, man, there's lots here to get through. Master data management. Here's another one that I think is really interesting, and also introduces a tool I've never heard of, Prophecy. And then there's this other one called Cluedo, right? And I'm like, look, this is a Kubernetes cluster of master data manager thing. So I'm like, oh man, we have to work all this stuff out, because this is an area where we used to have master data services, which is a Microsoft product, and now it's not there anymore. And so, and governance is a huge pain point for people, right? And master data management is part of the governance thing. Architecture seems very niche, and this is the thing, is that there's lots of niche architectures, and that's why there's so many of them, right? Look at all these different architectures. So that was just that one. Then you look at analytics architectures, there's more. And each one of them, like if we're doing a precision medicine pipeline with genomics, I don't know if that's crazy, right? Microsoft Genomics. Ever heard of that? Ever heard of that tool, right? An Azure Healthcare API. So there's heaps of niche areas, and we're not going to be able to get through like all of the different architectures, right? And I think the thing that you need to know from a sort of generalist point of view, and we kind of are generalists if we're in this kind of Power BI space, is that this area exists, and and it's worth going through and looking for your specific use cases in these reference architectures, because they're very, very useful. So you've got stuff on DataOps here, you've got stuff on DevOps, you've got some IoT stuff, you've got governance stuff, CI/CD, end-to-end governance with CI/CD. So there is like lots of interesting. This will be mostly to do with building code, but yeah, there's lots of interesting architectures here. So this is well worth knowing about. And here's AI and machine learning. Here, notice AI and machine learning, you click on it, it takes you to a completely different site, right? So everything else is expandable, but this one just takes you to the AI machine learning architectures. And then there's a whole other site full of architectures and how to do particular AI machine learning stuff. And this falls under data, like whether you like it or not, right? I know we mostly focus on the analytics space, but this all falls in under the same umbrella kind of area where we're talking about, yes, we need to do analytics, but to do analytics, we need to get the solution. We need to build a machine learning model that predicts something, or we need to use our financial modeling tool like Excel to generate the solution and then report on it. And so we'll be going a little bit into these kind of spaces. All right, so where do we start? I thought what we would do, and we'll of course use my best mate ChatGPT to help us out. I've been playing around with DALL-E 3 as well, and it's pretty cool, gotta say. So I said, hey, we're a consultant. We're what did I do? I said we're going to build a fictional consulting firm, and then I said, what do you need to consider? And then there's a bit of back and forth. So sorry to scroll through, but here's where we got to, right? So what I wanted was a list of kind of activities that a consulting firm, or this is a professional service firm of any kind, right? A professional services firm, what are the different kind of activities and tools and processes that we need to understand? And actually artifacts, we'll talk about artifacts. So this framework that I'm using here comes from tax frauds. This framework comes from a guy who's he's named, I want to say, Dr. Mick Kirsten or something like that. He's got a book around value stream matrices. So like not just value streams, but value stream, like a matrices of value streams. And he talks about 3 layers of an organization. There's artifacts, there's tools, and there's processes. And so, and they all have different things. So I wanted to get a bit of a list going of different things. So if you're a professional services firm, here's the stuff you need to do. You need to be good at requirement gathering and stakeholder communication. So you do stakeholder interviews and documentation, business requirements documents. You need to provide updates. You need feedback channels. You need to do data discovery, profiling, and governance. So if we're doing data consulting, we need to be able to do data inventory and profiling. We need to understand data dictionaries and stewardship. We need to know about data quality, and see how this is like, we're talking about potentially a firm that does Power BI consulting, but we're already into data dictionary and stewardship, data quality and data inventory. This is all data platform stuff that's beyond just an analytics area. We need to understand data architectures, logical and physical data models. We understand environment management, which is like a DevOps, DataOps thing, understanding environments and how to synchronize environments, understanding development, environment control, version controls, testing, deployment pipeline, and rollback strategies. We're talking about, this is all data platform activities that we need to understand to be able to reliably deliver analytic solutions. Monitoring and maintenance. So we need to understand monitoring. We need to understand maintenance. We need to understand failover strategies and load balancing type strategies if we're talking about larger environments. There's of course training and support. So we need to know how to train people, provide feedback loops to gather feedback from our solutions. We need to have meetings, do benchmarking. We need to do continuous improvement activities. We need to understand security. We've got problems with data sovereignty. We've got compliance. We've got disaster recovery. We've got backups. All that kind of stuff needs to be taken into account. And then there's budgeting, cost management, vendor relations, those types of things, archiving, retention policies, and all these other bits and pieces. So just to build, if we were a professional services firm that built data solutions, we need to know or be across all of this stuff. These are processes associated with it. Even a professional services team with a business within a business could use this approach. Yeah, can you share the checklist? This is comprehensive and exactly what you need, right? Yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty good at getting my ChatGPT to give me good processes. All right, I refined the list a few times. Let me give you the final list because it's pretty good in the end. Went through okay, we added in integration and interoperability, user experience and accessibility, change management. So there's a few ads, and so I think this is our final list here. Yeah, I kind of consolidated it a bit. Here you go. Here's your professional services checklist. I could probably share that in a much in a nicer way, but anyway, there it is in short term. Okay, and then I said, okay, well, let's compare this list of activities against our original goal of building a small business data platform for a consulting firm. To say, well, now we know what these are all the activities that a consulting style, professional services style firm might not have. What do we need for our data platform, right? So they're going to do client data management. So you're going to have multiple clients and projects and contracts related to communications. We need to be able to manage projects and track those projects. We need to be able to do financial management, so Excel. We need to potentially have a knowledge base where our knowledge base is going to contain past solutions, templates, like we talk about this at Dear Watson, right? We're not very good at storing like our old solutions and templates and stuff like that, and knowledge around retaining our knowledge from previous projects around that we can use in new ones. Now, you can't keep client data and things like that, but you can potentially keep, useful scripts and things in solutions that you've built that you can potentially use in the forenoon. So how do you manage that? Collaboration and communication. So there's obviously tools around that, Teams and things like that. And then, of course, our reporting and analytics. So reporting on business health, all the rest of it, and business development stuff. So you've got leads and opportunities and all the rest of it. And so then I mapped these. So I'll give you this list as well, which is those specific needs and the list associated with it. I think that's kind of cool. So just out of curiosity, like I spent a lot of time mucking around with ChatGPT. My process for this is I get it to review its own work and iterate on it, right? So I ask it a question, like I say, hey, we're building a data platform for a consulting firm that builds Power BI, and then it says, okay, here's a list of stuff. And then I go, well, review that list and tell me, do you think it's complete? What do you think of the quality of it? Is there anything else we could add? And then it usually will add 2 or 3 more things. And then I take that and then I say, well, let's review it again. And often I'll iterate through a couple of times, and you usually get a pretty good consolidated list that is fairly well considered. So this concept of kind of getting it to kind of review its own work is actually really, really useful and powerful. I also get it to optimize the list. So if it's, you see how it now says requirement gathering, stakeholder communication, and user experience are all in a single thing. That's because before it took user experience and added it as another bullet point. I said, well, isn't that kind of part of stakeholder communication? And so we kind of consolidated these the items together. Anyway, there's that final list as well. Okay, so we know that we need, we've got a bunch of things. Now, that's our kind of process and activities layer, right? We also need to understand our tools layer, and we need to, and then finally we'll need to understand our artifacts layer. So for tools, I thought instead of getting ChatGPT to generate tools, I'll just use tools that I know I've kind of got access to and can provide examples for. So for client data management, so that includes project management. So I think we'll probably just use something like Microsoft Project. Let me start making a list. Let's use Notepad++. Oh, look, here's some crazy code. Wonder what that's for. Okay. So for client management, for project management. So the tools are going to be project, probably Azure DevOps, because I know Azure DevOps pretty well. So project for maybe like for tracking some aspects, and Azure DevOps for kind of Kanban style board management and that kind of stuff. And you can use Azure DevOps for CI/CD type stuff as well. Okay, we've also got client data. So that's going to be some kind of CRM. So the obvious choice is Dynamics. Financial management is going to be done in Excel, because we don't want to spend lots of money on a crazy tool like SAP or something. Knowledge base and resource management, storing past solutions, templates, methodologies, and training materials. So that's going to be like OneDrive / OneDrive. Oh, so this is storing knowledge. If anyone's got any ideas for other tools as well that are better, then just let me know. Storage and knowledge management, Teams, OneDrive, SharePoint. That's what comes to mind for me for this kind of stuff. SharePoint, yeah, I'm with you. Okay. Collaboration and communication, that's going to be Teams again. Client tracking is going to be done through CRM. Storing past solutions, that'll be like OneDrive or Teams. Templates, methodologies, yep. Now, there's going to also be this concept of kind of Git repositories as well. So that's like sometimes you would have a Git repo. We can use Azure DevOps for managing repos. So we might use that. Reporting and analytics. Well, I wonder what tool we'll use. Okay, so that's going to be Power BI Fabric. Business development, tracking leads, proposals, feedback, market trends. So that's CRM as well. So then here's our tools, right? So we've got Microsoft Project, Azure DevOps, we've got Dynamic CRM for managing our client stuff. We're going to be doing all of our financial management in Excel, probably use a small business financial tool like Xero or MYOB. We're going to storing and knowledge management stuff in Teams, OneDrive, and SharePoint, which is effectively all the same thing. If you create files in Teams, they end up in SharePoint. If you create in OneDrive, they end up in SharePoint. It's all just SharePoint in the back end. Power BI and Fabric for our reporting layer. And then I really want to have like a custom built solution. But we'll get into that later. Maybe we'll have, I don't know, we'll think of something. There's probably some other things that we could do. We might use something like there might be a marketing thing. Like, so you might use something like Google Analytics, right? And you might use something like WordPress for your website.
What about one of those little demo streaming analytics things you had, like your wacky machines, but it could be just something else, like counters going into an office or.
That's a good idea. Yeah, let's do, we'll have our office management solution that tells us these actually exist, like they tell you when there's people sitting under the desk and all that kind of stuff. Like it actually it's pretty scary, track how they all went out of vogue, I think, in COVID, but They track if there's people are actually physically located places. We'll have
No,
something like that.
in facilities management, it's actually really interesting. In the new big buildings, they can even control like the lumens and stuff that are coming from the lights based on the people who are like in the areas. So as people leave the areas, they actually turn the lights down and save power and stuff.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So yeah, they're doing it for all those kind of things. CI/CD. Yeah, so CI/CD I would use Azure DevOps type stuff for as well. So I think we've got CI/CD covered. Confluence. Do we use Confluence anywhere? Oh, I don't know. Do I want to introduce an Atlassian product into the mix? I'm not sure if I want, because so there's other things that you would commonly run into. You would run into things like Confluence. You would run into things like ServiceNow for maybe service management. There's a few other bits and pieces. This is already massive though, so I don't know. We can work through it. And if we decide we want to introduce a technology, we can always introduce a technology.
Yeah, I think they're changing the Teams wiki thing into its own like wiki, I guess, to compete with Confluence now. So there's like a new Microsoft Teams
Right.
wiki.
Yeah. The the whole Microsoft Teams wiki thing was interesting, right? Because they had the wiki page and then they deprecated it, and now they're bringing in like so they're just making it like Confluence, I guess. Is there anything else that I want to add into the mix here? So we've got our custom facilities tracker Power App. We've got some marketing stuff. We've got reporting. Sales is covered under CRM. We've got finance managed by Xero and Excel. We've got knowledge management happening in Teams. We've got client project management, client data. Okay, so we might have some kind of time sheeting and we might have some kind of payroll. That's probably the only thing I can think of. Payroll will be done through Xero or MYOB. Timesheet would probably be done through them as well. Yeah, so I'm just going to call this financial management, timesheets, and payroll, just to simplify it. Workday, yeah. I mean, we could implement. There's all sorts of potential solutions. I'm trying to keep it to stuff that I know well. I don't know Workday that well, and as much Microsofty as I can because it's going to be a bit easier to integrate. Yeah. Success factors is another one. Yeah, you could definitely. What we'll do is we'll say, like our sample will be Xero, but you could replace that with whatever, because it'll be the concept of payroll. Because what I intend to do, and this is probably be the next step, is we'll start to identify user personas that and processes that they're particularly going to be using, and so payroll will be an example. And then you can just you source it. The only thing you'll need to adjust is kind of the source system thinking, and then everything else should flow through to the data platform pretty much the same way, or in a similar way at least, I would hope. All right, let's feed this into my buddy. This is great. Matthew Pace says thanks. We decided on some tools for different areas of the business. I'll just get it to see if it comes up with any other ideas. All right, so it's doing the comparison between for all the different things. Teams is essential for internal communication. Dynamics can combine back and thing. Xero in YAB and OneDrive SharePoint for data profiling governance. Yeah, okay. Data architecture, development project, Dynamics, Power BI Fabric, DevOps for deployment, testing and changing, and CI/CD type stuff. Monitoring. We didn't really talk too much about monitoring. So there's Azure. There's also Azure services that we could use in the monitoring space, right? So we could use like the Azure monitoring stuff. See if they suggest anything. Security, compliance, recovery, and risk management. OneDrive security, yeah. So that's going to be part of the Azure platform as well. Some of the like RBAC, like access control and that kind of stuff. Xero MYOB for guard budgeting and cost management. OneDrive and SharePoint. Google Analytics will help understanding and reaching out effectively facilities and handle office management. Okay, what does it say? Integration. Tools can be integrated. Yeah, backup and redundancy. We need to make sure that Dynamics and Xero are getting backed up properly. Fair enough. Well, that's interesting because they're SaaS services. They kind of handle their own backup. You're never going to lose Dynamics or Xero. Well, you'd be super unlucky. But I think what we're going to do anyway is pull all the Xero data into our lake anyway. But yeah, we're not really going to create a backups policy for those SaaS services. We're just going to expect our SaaS provider to give that. Oh yeah, Southeast Water. Yeah. Beautiful office out there. Frankston Foreshore, right on the beach. Show the tools like Teams and OneDrive. Yep, customize. Yeah. So I think we've got everything. Got everything we need. Facility. See, I love how after it gets to 10, it doesn't know what to do with numbers. It does this all the time. It's really weird. It's like it doesn't know 11.
One,
it just goes back to 1.
One.
Yeah.
One.
1. Yeah. Did it earlier in the chat as well. You'll notice I've got DALL-E 3 enabled as well, but I'm not actually using. I was get it to create as a picture, but yeah, having it's just because I've got it turned on. Okay, so we've got some tools, we've got some processes. We do have to think about artifacts, and we have to think about the people side of things. So maybe let's just see what it comes up with. And so what we'll focus on one area at a time. Let's create. I've never spelled approach right the first time in my life. Okay, how should we approach this? So I just want to see what it suggests for creating user personas. So here's a really interesting thing as well that I've learnt when I've gone to 2 conferences recently where it's been all chief C-level data people, right? So there's chief data officers or the heads of BI or whatever. And they all have a problem with internal comms and getting the word out there about what their teams do and why they're valuable. One of the main reasons is because data people don't tend to be very good marketers. They don't sell themselves particularly well. They're not out there, and they're fairly insular. They want to just give me the data and I'll go and hack away at it and then give you a solution. But they're not great at kind of tying into kind of the broader strategy with the organizations and that kind of stuff. And it's endemic. Like, it's not just you, it's everybody has the same problem. Everyone struggles with this kind of how do we, and it's a problem because you need to get funding and you need to show your value, and otherwise what happens is it comes around, like money gets tight or whatever, and they just start chopping people out of the data team because they don't see, well, we don't need these people, they're not doing anything useful for us, right? And so there's like it has a survival mechanism associated with it. There's a internal kind of value proposition stuff. And the ones who are successful who I have met a few of them now, have almost an internal marketing department. And what they do is they do stuff like they create user personas for their users. So what they do is they say, well, they go, well, this is a, if you're a, you know, if you work in a, I don't know, like uh, um, a manufacturing organization, and you're a, you know, a floor manager out on the floor, what's the data you need? What are your pain points? Why is your job, you know, annoying? What are the things that, so they've got this profile of a person, and what they do is they build, when they're talking about their solutions, they have different kind of ways of talking about it depending on kind of the people they're talking about. And they are able to kind of market it out to these people, so they can say, hey, are you a manufacturing manager, a facilities manager? We've got this and this and this, these things are associated with your roles, and this is what it can do. This is an ML model that helps predict, you know, what load you're going to have this week. Or, you know, there's all these, they have specific kind of internal marketing capability that helps them get the word out there. And they've got little mini internal blogs, and they run sessions with people, and they have workshops. They also do really interesting stuff around like hackathons and all sorts of things. So that's something to consider, is this kind of internal marketing is really important for data teams. And it's not something that comes naturally, but it's particularly at the higher levels, like the C levels, the CDO and all those guys. They're all in these constant conversations with other people in the organization, their peers at the higher levels, trying to get work for people and trying to understand it. And they're trying to align themselves with kind of the strategy of the organization or whatever, to get funding and to make sure these things happen. And so they need to be able to speak in almost this marketing speak to non-technical users about what we do. And
And
so this,
yeah,
yeah, go ahead.
I would also add that part of the problem is that most of the time, if your data team's doing the right thing, you won't necessarily hear from them. It's when the wheels fall off that everyone suddenly is jumping up and
Mm,
down. They're like, oh, why is this report not working or whatever? So you only get the negative press.
exactly. Yeah.
But another thing that I've seen done really well is that they try to capture the value from the user when they first deliver it. So they say, you
Mm,
kind of do a almost like a sprint review, but with the user, and say, what does this mean for you? And then you capture that, so that when it comes time to the end of the year and you say, these are all the user reviews kind of we had
mm.
from all these data products that we released to the user, and
Yeah.
that kind of helps justify your existence.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you got this almost constant messaging going out that's showing the value of what you're doing as you go through. And the way the really successful ones tie it back to things that are almost like revenue generating or customer facing activities, right? So if the CEO says, all right, we're going to build a whole new product, and this product's going to be the whiz bang product, it's going to take us out to market, we're going to make $1 gazillion, whatever it is, then the really good data teams are tying themselves to that product. So they say, we're going to build this new ML model that's going to enable this product, or we're going to build this new data solution that's going to enable this product to do the thing that you want it to do. And this is and it's called it's called the widget express pro solution, like it's actually, so it's consistently named through. And so then when the CEO talks to a data engineer in the elevator, and the data engineer goes, oh, I'm working on the Widget Express Pro machine learning model, the CEO's like, oh, cool, that's the latest. They instantly know that they're talking about something that's related to this particular strategy. And the data engineer doesn't have to sit there and go, oh, I'm working on Project Bob, that's a machine learning model. And then the CEO's eyes glaze over before they get to the point where they realize, what the thing is. Automating the report saves 2 FTE days, and this is what it is. It's all about getting back to quantifying your and someone muted me. Putting a dollar value on your
You got muted again somehow.
uh, Who's hitting the mute button? Cheeky buggers. All right. Still good? All good. So yeah, that's why I'm taking this user approach, this user persona approach. So how would you create user personas? Research data, do some segmentation, draft some initial personas with name, role, demographics. Of course, I'm just going to get it all to make it all up, but this is how we should approach it if we were doing it properly. I mean, user personas is about kind of generalizing a little bit a particular role, these kind of roles, and then understanding, you know, what their pain points and goals and motivations are. Someone's trying to stop Greg for telling the secrets of internal promotion. Exactly. Yeah.
There's some CFO on the line.
CFO. Yeah. Uh, that validation, refinement, visualization, distribution, you know, create some personas. And here's some personas that's created as an example. So let's have a look. A project manager called Organized Olivia. I love it. She oversees client projects, ensures projects are delivered on time and within budget. Her pain points are tracking multiple projects and coordinating with different teams. She uses projects in Azure DevOps, and she needs it. I need a clear view of projects of all time. So that's good. It's a very basic kind of persona. That's really great, right? So now we can build data products that are targeted to our project manager, Olivia role. To say, okay, well, what does Olivia need to do to see a thing? How do we help her track multiple projects? How do we help her coordinate? And you know, we're kind of on brand, and where it shows we understand what Olivia is going through. This is the power of these kind of personas. Analytical Alex. Oh, is Alex on the call? Maybe not. Is there an Alex? They've got an Alex Wilkinson on the call. We don't have my Alex on the call. All right, Analytical Alex, this is you. Works directly with clients, providing expertise. Let us know if this is actually you. Delivers value to clients, stays updated on industry trends, accessing past project data and time tracking, Teams, Dynamics, CRM, Excel. Every client's unique, and so is their solution. So that's cool. And then we've got a finance person, budgeting Bella. Manages company finances, ensures profitability. This is what my Alex actually does. Inaccurate timesheets and expense tracking. Xero, MYOB, Excel. Every dollar counts. I need to know where it's coming from. Cool. So we've run out of time. I know I've just been rabbiting on for like a whole hour, but we'll next week we'll build out our personas a little bit better. We'll try and get a good landscape of understanding what our data platform needs to do. That'll help target kind of what we do, and then we can start prioritizing. We'll pick some fun things, some fun projects. We'll see what we can do in terms of building our data platform out, and we'll go from there. Cool. Anyway, that's it. Thanks very much, folks. It's the end of lunchtime. You have to go back to work now, but have a great weekend. I hope you can join us again for next week's exciting edition on data platforms. Yeah, if you got something out of this, then let me know. It's always useful. If you think there's anything we can improve, of course, let me know as well. And yeah, we'll see you soon. Yeah, have a great one. We'll catch up very soon. Hey, I got a thumbs up from Virtual Tory. Thank you very much. Cheers, guys.